We do. I'm connecting to founders to learn more about how I can move the needle on the number of science and technology startups that end up in failure.
Okay.
Because 9 out of 10 of them do, usually because of a failure to attract finance. And I've spent the last 2 years building a company, understanding the terrible way in which most founders approach funds, and designed a new approach. And I'm delivering that via, principles, communicated through content marketing and then through training course and consulting effort. So basically, there's two main issues that I solve for science and technology problems: the idea itself and the plan. So they rock up, so they think. So I help them with both of those. So the idea, is basically coming up with their offer. So if they've got a new technology, it's potentially got lots of applications in the market. How do you choose the right ones, which are the right things to impress an investor? You can't just rock up and go, yeah, it does this and this and this and this and this, because the investor doesn't know what the hell. So getting that offer right is what I do from one offer. And the other is basically the plan of how they're going to grow, or the plan of how they're going to achieve the fundraising. Because if they're going for like Series A, the investor's going to ask for a certain load of criteria, annual recurring revenues, growth, market potential, all these sort of things. If they've got nothing but basically something that works for 5 of their mates, then they've got to have a plan of how they're going to get from where they are now to a Series A. And I break it up into a series of jumps depending on where they are. And I basically design them, come up with the plan in a really compressed time scale, working with them in workshops, give them the plan, and then they go and run it. I don't really want to do implementation. I don't want to do coaching. It bores me. I've got ADD. I don't like that. I like doing short, sharp things where the clients keep coming back to me. But that's like the opposite model of most consultancies these days, who charge retainers and they upsell and annual contracts. I can't do that in the startup world. So I'm trying to develop a new business model that makes me money and that makes them a shitload of money in the future, which they'll thank me for, and I can be famous. So I don't particularly want to be rich, but I would like to get known for being a good guy to help the startup world. That's me.
A good lead for you is somebody that says, hey, I've got an idea, or I want to get into business. I want to take something that I'm doing and create something big with it. You come in and sort of shepherd them through the process of getting all that they need in order to take it from concept to reality.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter what stage of that journey they're on. I'll help them get to the next logical milestone, inflection point, whatever you want to call it, really.
You come in, you coach and mentor, if you will, people on how to get the funding to get their businesses up and running, regardless of the industry they're involved in. You're going to teach and train them on how to do it private money or institutional money, or however they can get funded. You got a couple different concepts that you can give somebody when it comes to funding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would prefer to do things in sort of things like using design sprints. So if they're thinking of developing a product for the market, rather than just come up with a good idea in their shed and design it and produce a concept on their own, do it in a design sprint way, in compressed timescales, involve customers in the design so that you get something that the market actually wants, instead of building a solution looking for a problem, which is what a lot of people building new things that are genuinely new to the world. That's the sector I work in. That's what they fall into. They don't involve the market enough. So my approach is to basically work with them, come up with a good design and a plan that they can then put in front of investors, which is like solid gold, bulletproof, as opposed to, we're going to get 5% of the global whatever market in 3 years. But my biggest issue, of course, is the fact that I've targeted my business on a sector I care passionately about, the startup sector, and creating impact from science and technology, solving real problems in the world. They can least afford to pay me because they're early stage, pre-Series A, and I have to sort of work in sort of bite-sized chunks, and that's how I work with my clients. I'm not a long-term sort of mentor, coach, and trainer that they can't afford. I'm not a broker that will get them a deal and then charge them 7.5%, because that leads to the startups in the shit. I'm not an accelerator program you have to wait years for and get taught a bunch of stuff you don't need to know and give away equity in your company. I'm a one-man band at the moment, consultant with a very different approach on how companies can do it, which is much faster, much cheaper, much save them years of their life. And I'm trying to get it out there. And I've been doing that for 2 years, since I was nearly killed by a Mercedes driver at 50 miles an hour whilst I was out pedaling my bike. But I'm still here. I started the company, growing it. It's very young, loving it, but it's bloody hard work in recession and with the market I've chosen.
I understand. And you can do this in Europe. You can do this in North America.
Yeah, I've got clients from California, startup out there, to in Singapore, and I get to work with those clients that I love. Because I choose them at the moment, because I won't work with a client if I think they're duff, because I need that case study as much as they need the results. We both rely on them.
And how's the fundraising been lately with the economy? Have you found institutions wanting to spend money? Or are you finding people waiting until next year, or they're sort of seeing how the economy plays out? What's been the temperature of the money side?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because up until fairly recently, the general picture, when there was a lot of uncertainty, like during COVID, was basically investors starting to double down on investments they'd made and follow-on investments and not doing new stuff. But that's not affected, and the recession hasn't affected the appetite for early stage investments, because they're always going to be risky. And so you might as well be taking risks in a pandemic or a recession as any other time, and perhaps even more so. So the pre-Series A stuff is still largely unaffected, and the UK and US, which are the only ones I can really keep in touch with, it seems to be doing okay. It's the later stage companies, the ones that have potentially bloated out and they're trying to raise more money, but their market may be starting to approach a cliff. So private equity investment, that is really slowing down. That's the other end of the market, it's the one I work in. So